Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be teaching you all about head movement in UFC 4. So you're going to learn how to evade strikes and effectively counter your opponent. I'm specifically making this video because it was suggested by user Classic MMA Sports. I told you guys before that if you suggest a specific video topic in the comments, I'll try and get the video recorded, edited and uploaded as quickly as possible for you. In the first part of the video, I'm going to talk you through how to sway different incoming strikes, and then we'll transition to some online gameplay where, as always, I'll give you some more general tips on how to get better. Before we get into the video, I want to show you how to set up the practice mode in UFC 4 because I've got a few messages asking me about this. So you'll see on screen you have to go into offline modes, then select practice. Then if you press the left stick down, you get loads of different customization options, so you can set the bot's behavior to suit your needs specifically. If you want to practice striking, you can do that. If you want to practice grappling, you can also do that. Doesn't matter what skill level you're at because you can customize the difficulty from beginner to advanced, or you can just have the bot stand there to practice combinations on it. Just mess around with the settings to see what's possible. I use strike recording for my videos. With the strike recording feature enabled, you press left on the D-pad and it will put you in control of the AI for a few seconds, and you can record any strike or movement you want. And then if you press up on the D-pad, whatever you recorded will continue on a loop. So here I've got Poirier throwing a jab on loop, and that will continue until I stop the recording and change it. So you can move your fighter's head in any direction by moving the right stick around. First I'll show you how to evade straight punches, so this is jabs and crosses. As the strike comes in, you need to move your head either left or right, and this is done by moving the right stick either up or down. Next, to evade a hook, you need to move the right stick down to duck underneath it, but you can also pull your head back to avoid a hook, and this is done by pushing the right stick either left or right depending on the direction your fighter is facing. You've got a couple of different options when evading uppercuts too, so you can move your head to either side like you did for the straights by pushing the right stick up or down, or you can pull your head back like you did for the hooks, again by moving the right stick left or right depending on which way you're facing. Now this seems quite easy, but there's a lot of risk involved when using head movement. If you sway the wrong way and move your head towards an incoming strike, it does massive damage. So you can see I swayed into this hook from Poirier and it did enough damage to knock me down. So you need to be really careful that you don't sway into hooks and duck into uppercuts. Now I'm going to show you what counters you should pair with your sways. If you successfully slip a straight, you should throw a hook to counter. It does a lot of damage because the hook goes with the momentum of your body movement, if that makes sense. If you successfully duck a hook, you should throw an uppercut to counter. Once again, this does more damage because your whole body's moving back up with the uppercut. Lastly, for the same reason, after a pull counter, come back in with a cross to do maximum damage. The sways I've shown you so far are major sways. They take up quite a bit of stamina and your whole body moves in whatever direction you're pushing the right stick. You can also do what's called a minor sway by just flicking the right stick rather than holding it. As you can see, these are a much quicker movement and they take up less stamina. The issue with these is that they're harder to time correctly because the animation's so quick. I only like to use minor sways when I'm walking towards my opponent about to throw a strike. So as I'm walking towards them, I'll quickly slip to the left or the right to avoid their jab and start my combination with a hook. It's a bit tricky to get the hang of, but when you do, it's a good way to start off your combos. You can also use head movement to duck under head kicks and overhands. When you do this, you're pretty much guaranteed to rock the opponent at least, if not knock them down, because of how much it drains their stamina, so this is a really useful strategy. Lastly, before we move on to the next part of the video, I'll quickly teach you about lunges. Holding L1 and pushing the right stick in any direction will cause your fighter to lunge in that direction. You can use this to completely get out of the way of any strikes your opponent is throwing, and it's particularly useful when you're backed up against the cage. If you time it correctly, you can lunge either left or right to get your back away from the cage and give you some space. You've got to be really careful using this though, because if you lunge into a hook or a kick, it will do a lot of damage. So as you can see in this clip, I tried to lunge away from my opponent and he caught me with a spinning heel kick and nearly murdered me. Now I'm going to show you an online fight I had. Unfortunately, we're both playing as McGregor, so it's a little bit confusing, but I'm in the red corner, so I've got the red gloves on. In this fight, I'm trying to use head movement a little bit every now and then to counter my opponent. And that's my first tip: do not spam head movement. Use it sparingly, because if you use it too much, it's going to drain your stamina and your opponent's going to know that what you're trying to do is slip them and counter them, and they're going to try and mix up their combos to prevent you from doing that. My second tip is you can use head movement to evade multiple strikes in a row. So for example, you can slip a jab and then duck under a hook in quick succession. This is a lot harder though, so if you're still trying to get used to head movement, I'd advise you to just keep it simple because you don't want to risk getting caught and swaying into a strike. Lastly, and most importantly, make reads on your opponent. What I mean by this is the game moves very quickly, so it's difficult to see what punch they're throwing and then decide which way you want to move your head, because by the time you've made that decision, they've probably already landed the strike. Instead, try and predict their movements. See what your opponent's habits are. If they always start their combination off with a jab, then you know that as soon as they move to hit you, it's probably going to be a jab to start off with, and you know you need to slip to the side to avoid that punch. This works the other way around too though, so if your opponent slipped your jab a few times, then start your combo off with a hook instead to throw them off. You can see here I get rocked by a head kick in the first round, and a little bit later on he tries the same kick but misses. So now I've made a read that whenever I'm in kicking range, he's looking for that same kick again. Later in the fight, I'm staying back away from him, keeping myself in kicking range because I'm trying to bait him into throwing that kick again. Fortunately for me, he takes the bait, I'm able to duck under the kick and counter, and he gets knocked down. I'm almost able to finish the fight. At that point he should have realised that he shouldn't throw that kick anymore because I'm prepared for it, but he tries it again not too long after, and once again I'm able to counter it, and this time I finish the fight. Now this shows you why it's so important to make reads on your opponent. It doesn't matter how good your opponent is, everyone has habits, and if you're able to identify these habits, you can turn them into weaknesses. That's it for this video. If you found it helpful, if you learned anything new, like, comment and subscribe. It helps the channel out a lot. If you've got any other suggestions about content you want to see in the future, leave that in the comments as well. Thank you very much for watching.
So a seminal moment.